booting them off social media isn't going to wind back the clock so that they can live the childhoods that we did. It's going to invariably nudge them into darker, less safe corners of the internet.
We're concerned that the bill lacks that fundamental detail about the technical implementation on age assurance expectations, and therefore the Parliament doesn't have the necessary detail.
Where is their responsibility in this?
For 3 hours yesterday, bureaucrats, academics, representatives of big tech and mental health professionals were quizzed by senators about the proposed social media ban for people under 16 in what may have been one of the fastest Senate inquiries in history.
Making those platforms responsible for creating safer places for everybody, but particularly for young people, surely is the aim here. So just a blanket ban doesn't do that.
It's not about stopping real-world interaction, it's about balancing social media with real-world interaction.
If you are focused on online safety for children, why are you trying to stop this bill coming into law?
Because my concern is that this could compromise the safety of young people. My focus at Digi and in previous...
That's an outrageous statement. You're trying to protect the big tech giants. You're trying to protect them, isn't that the case?
The government's proposed social media ban is a particularly strange political creature. Legislation that both sides of politics agree will or even should pass, but it's also legislation which many in the Parliament think is deeply flawed, or at the very least contains or raises a lot of questions for which the government doesn't have answers.
The hard work is cracking down on those dangerous algorithms, of putting in place a duty of care and ensuring that the guardrails are there so those platforms, wherever young people may find themselves.
The unseemly rush to pass the bill before the end of the year comes amid an acknowledged sense of crisis among many parents about the impact of social media on their children. When a rapid-fire Senate inquiry was announced last Thursday, it was swamped with an astounding 15,000 submissions in 24 hours, partly driven by ex-proprietor Elon Musk weighing in.
We don't have much time to work out, where this bill needs to be improved, if it can be improved. And I don't think, frankly, there's much political will from either of the major parties to change it.
It's an issue that sometimes stirs deep emotions, as it did when the bill was debated in the House of Representatives today, even before the Senate committee report was tabled.
The protection of children from social media is one of the defining issues of our era. Every parent worries about this.
A lot of the media focus has been on misgivings by some individual MPs and senators on the legislation, including LNP Senator Matt Canavan.
We basically had as much time between the Last Supper and the resurrection to evaluate a world-leading piece of regulation which has huge ramifications for all Australians.
But there is also a broader policy concern about this issue. The proposed social media ban is just one of a range of policy responses already in train. That includes a government-led parliamentary committee which reported back last week, but which did not recommend an age ban, and a duty of care framework to prevent online harm and hold platforms accountable.
Why don't you just get them to change their algorithms so they actually look like they're caring about our kids?
We need to see continued investment in algorithms and ensuring that they do a better job at addressing harmful content, but I can assure you that algorithms are in place and being deployed constantly in order to address this harmful content.
If things weren't already moving at confusing speed, the government has been making amendments as it goes, including one which explicitly says platforms cannot compel users to produce digital ID or government-issued identity documents.
What's stopping me just setting up an account and imitating an American or a Canadian and then just using that account? You'll never have to check my age, right?
Well, this is one of the reasons why we think it's really important that the trial that's only recently commenced is completed, so that some of those questions can be, thoroughly interrogated before we go ahead.
Social media dominated the regular meeting of the Coalition Party Room this morning. 19 speakers were in favour of the legislation, 3 were opposed. Opposition leader Peter Dutton has made it clear the Coalition will be supporting the legislation. There is also some disquiet within Labor ranks. The Greens will move an amendment to the bill, which they fully expect will fail. Late sittings will be needed to get through as much outstanding business as possible. The government's legislative priorities for these last few days of Parliament, pending various negotiations, are best reflected in the Senate order of business. They include changes to the student debt scheme, school funding reforms and multinational tax laws. The government is still negotiating with the Greens over the shape of the Environmental Protection Agency, which would oversee environment laws. Legislation to establish the proposed Food and Grocery Code to crack down on dodgy supermarket practices is still outstanding. No wonder that there is speculation among MPs that at least the House of Representatives will sit for an extra day on Friday.